how? Not even why. How? Because I can understand why someone would want to make a game like this, but how do you get it approved by the ESRB and put onto a Nintendo system?
Yes, Conker's Bad Fur Day is one of those games that makes you question just how much of their budget was spent on bribing the ESRB into giving it an M rating, and letting Nintendo, who are the most prudish game company out there, allow this on their system.
This game is just disgusting, offensive, perverted, violent, and vulgar, and it leaves me with one question. Why don't we have more games like this?
At the time, this game pushed the limits of what was considered acceptable in the gaming industry. For example, there's a massive pile of sentient fecal matter that sings about covering you in its own excrement and then using you as toilet paper. There's a king bee that you help get laid with a sunflower with huge boobs, and then she offers you to bounce on them. And you do.
This game takes toilet humor and sex jokes to, shall we say, creative new levels?
This game is hilarious, and you gotta wonder how they got away with it. No game developer would get away with this now. In fact, the remake Conker Live and Reloaded was heavily censored because Microsoft ordered them to, while originally they were going to have it completely uncensored. Conker's Bad Fur Day is to video games as South Park is to television. It's that vulgar and violent, all the while portraying in a cartoony, lighthearted fashion as it parodies some of the greatest movies of all time.
While Banjo-Kazooie's story made some sense, Conker's, well, it's got some of the most retarded story ideas that I've ever seen. Not that that's bad, but some things are just really stupid.
Conker goes out to a bar and in a drunken stupor gets lost and is trying to find his way home. All the while, King Panther wants his table fixed, and the Weasel Mad Scientist says that the Red Squirrel would fix the problem. I've seen screwball squirrel cartoons make more sense than this. It's not bad, but it sure is pretty stupid, but it's stupid on purpose. On his way home, Conker gets sidetracked by helping everyone that he runs into, and it parodies movies like Saving Private Ryan, Alien, and The Terminator, just to name a few. And the game does my favorite cliche of all time, where it addresses the player.
I guess you could say the fourth wall has been broken.
And again, Rare has done a fantastic job with the N64 hardware in terms of graphics. And the art style is more cartoonish than Banjo-Kazooie. The music, well, that's another story. I'm not saying it's bad, in fact it's very good, but there's two tracks that I think I should mention. First, I want to talk about the one in the Dung Beetle area, where it sounds like it would be in a mobster movie, but then the music evolves into nothing but fart sounds. Then there's the song that the great mighty Pooh sings.
Remember what I said about toilet humor being brought to creative new levels? Well, this song has certainly skipped a lot of them.
Not even in my most drunken of states could I have ever think of a giant singing poo monster. I'm really at a loss for words here. It's one of the most iconic moments in gaming history. Did you really think that you'd ever see this in a game? I know I sure didn't, and it's pretty, well, creative to say the least. Speaking of creative, the levels are highly, well, I suppose imaginative is the word I'm going to have to use for lack of a better one. Especially because of the level that made this game famous. The levels are really big too, but unlike Banjo-Kazooie, they're easier to navigate through as the game is not focused on exploration or collecting.
But Conker's Bad Fur Day is still about the adventure. A weird LSD-induced adventure, but an adventure nonetheless.
Now, I haven't played Banjo-Tooie, so I don't know how that game controls. But in comparison to the first Banjo-Kazooie game, the controls are greatly improved. Especially because Banjo-Kazooie's controls are perfect as is. Conker controls very fluidly, so he feels more natural. And the camera is fixed too. Instead of moving from pre-programmed angles, it glides along as you hold the button down, so it feels normal and it's easier to manage.
Okay, now onto the flaws that I've observed. I know you guys don't come here to see me praise a game. That's not why you come to me. No, you want to see what I'm going to say is wrong with the game.
The swimming can be a total pain. I forgot to mention this in my Banjo-Kazooie review, but the swimming in that game sucked. It was slow, stiff, and the camera didn't help at all, especially when it wouldn't follow you into the water sometimes. But with Conker, while swimming isn't slow or stiff, but it feels far too loose. Allow me to elaborate. It may or may not be loose because it feels pretty good, but sometimes the camera spazzes out when you're trying to swim. Like if you need to make quick movements, Conker feels like he's underwater, but the camera will slide like it's on oil. And because of that, you may over or undercompensate your movements. And the graphic for how much air Conker has left is pretty ambiguous. And there's times where you need to shoot at a target and there's no crosshairs. It makes aiming absolutely impossible. It's so frustrating because you have to tap the control stick ever so slightly, and even the slightest nudge can cause the most drastic of movements, completely changing the trajectory.
Okay, Rare, you made GoldenEye, why are there no crosshairs? Better question, how come no one noticed that there's no way to target when this game was being playtested?
But that's all that I really found for flaws. But there's other elements that I like. One of the main gameplay points is the context-sensitive pads. When you stand on one, a light bulb appears, and pressing the B button will have Conker perform an action that's sensitive to the context where you're at. See what I did there? Now most of these can only be used one time, since once the task is completed, they serve no purpose. The game has been criticized for being linear, but it doesn't feel that way, because you can still backtrack and you can skip certain areas. At least it seems that you can. I've bounced around the areas with no issue.
Remember what I said about Banjo-Kazooie and all the characters being off-the-wall bonkers? Well, Conker's Bad Fur Day doesn't take it to a next level, but takes it to an entirely different solar system.
If you're going to talk about this game, you gotta talk about the characters. Conker is a rude and sarcastic degenerate. Birdie is a stupid drunk. The Dung Beetles are dicks for no reason other than to be dicks. I've already touched upon the Great Mighty Pooh earlier, and then there's my favorite character, Greg the Grim Reaper. Greg is hands down the funniest character in the game. When Conker first dies, Greg is irritated because squirrels are special cases. He talks about how reaping cats is troublesome because they have 9 lives and they're hard to catch. He hates zombies because they're already dead and sees no point in reaping them again. And his reaction to seeing the ghosts of the catfish that were killed earlier is hilarious. Which brings me to the live system. You have infinite lives in the sense that you could keep collecting the same one multiple times. The extra lives will regenerate, like the one at the signpost. You can go into an area, come back out, and recollect it. So as long as you don't do anything stupid, you'll just collect as many lives as you want without actually working for them.
So yes, Greg the Grim Reaper was right. You do get as many lives as you want. Too bad this just doesn't apply for real squirrels.
Difficulty-wise, it's pretty easy. The anti-gravity chocolate respawns shortly after you eat it, allowing you to run back after a few minutes to replenish any lost health. However, there are times when I've been cheated with instant death. Like when I was fighting the Great Mighty Pooh, jumping over this gap, falling into the lake, and getting hit with a ball of poo, causing Conker to be stunned and sink into the lake and die. Now you may say that's my own fault for misjudging the jump, and you're partially correct. Here's the thing. I'm up against the wall. For the poo ball to hit me, it would have to pass through the geometry of the wall. I'm not sure if it's a glitch, or if I'm looking at it from the wrong angle, but it seems like a really cheap death.
However, if I fell into a river full of feces, I would want to die too. There's just no amount of steel wool that would ever make me feel clean.
This game was eventually remade on the original Xbox, and for that system, it looks amazing. But unfortunately, Microsoft ordered Rare to censor the game. While it fine-tuned the gameplay and was well received, because of the added censorship, it didn't get the scores it was going to. In fact, Rare wanted to have the game completely uncensored. There was a sequel that was being developed called Conker's Other Bad Fur Day, where it shows him wasting the kingdom's money on beer and hookers, then is thrown into jail awaiting his execution, and he escapes. However, that game was cancelled after Rare was bought by Microsoft, so instead they did the remake. This game is infamous, so infamous in fact, that Nintendo of America refused to even acknowledge the game's existence. It was never featured in Nintendo Power until issue 230, when it was mentioned in their playback section, and Nintendo forced Rare to put a huge warning label on the box of the game. Nintendo of Europe wouldn't even publish the game, so it was published by THQ in that region, and Rare published it themselves in America. KB Toys, a now defunct toy store, would not sell it. Advertisements for the game were in issues of Playboy magazine.
If you haven't guessed by now, just by content alone, this game gets a legendary score. We will never see a game like this on consoles again. And the gameplay is perfect. It takes Banjo-Kazooie's gameplay, which was perfect to begin with, and improves upon it. This is one of those games that you must play at some point in your life.